Stephanie Dobson is joining us once again this week. And this week, Stephanie, it's part 2 of our series from last week, where we're talking about how to help kids thrive in essence, a 2-home family. So we went through 5 tips last week, going to go through the next 5 this week. So Stephanie,
Yes.
Let's start with the first one, which is learning to communicate effectively as co-parents. Tell me why that's so important.
Communication in any setting of our lives is a struggle and something to always work on. It's at the foundation of every co-parenting relationship is good communication. Communication is often what my clients will say was one of the main reasons for the breakdown in the relationship. And so we know that if it was difficult in one home, it's going to be even more difficult in 2 homes. I really recommend that you try to come up with a good system between the both of you as to the method of communication for any particular type of topic. So some things you might say, let's text about these things, let's talk about these things, let's email about these things. And in some of the previous segments, we've even talked about the use of technology like a co-parenting app that parents can communicate. And maybe they want to communicate through those types of means for more difficult topics. That sort of thing. With Up a Notch Learning, my e-learning community, in there we have an ebook that's a free download that talks about effective communication. So viewers can go check that out if that might be of use to them.
All right, and the next tip is about consistency and keeping things consistent. Talk a little bit about that, Stephanie, please.
This is a continuation off of tip number 2, which was consistency between the parenting schedule. This is an extension where we talk about consistency between 2 households. It's really difficult for children, especially at exchanges between 2 homes. And one of the most difficult things, of course, if there's conflict between the parents, but also it's that sometimes 2 households will run very differently. And so kids have to put on their brain for mom's house or their brain for dad's house. And, it can be really tough on them. So you may want to think about getting consistent on things like bedtimes, electronics rules, curfews, screen time, that sort of thing. Even the use of electronics at the dinner table, homework rules, even nutrition guidelines. When are they allowed to have junk food, hygiene, discipline, those sorts of things. That can also help so that children don't see too much of a difference between households, and then they may start to favor one household or the other because one is more lenient, for example.
Okay, and the next tip is to liaise with the professionals that surround the children. So I assume that would be like doctors, teachers, that kind of thing. Why is that such a big deal?
Exactly. So the professionals I'm talking about are, as you said, so doctors, dentists, counselors, school administrators, teachers. They all surround your children, and they're going to help your children as they grow and develop. And they're going to be recommending certain things for each of your children. I highly recommend that parents have firsthand contact, if possible, with those professionals that surround your children so that you can get the information directly, the recommendation that they're making. You can hear it direct from the professional. You can ask the questions that you have so that can help to impact the conversation that you and your co-parent have as far as making those final decisions if you have joint decision making.
Okay, and the next tip, Stephanie, is to choose an out-of-court negotiation process. Obviously, this is one of your specialties, so tell me why this is such a big deal.
And I harp on it a lot, and we've done a few different segments about various ways to keep your divorce or separation or divorce out of the court system. It's not just me. There's rules through the court system. There's government legislation that talks about the importance of keeping your divorce out of the court system. And part of that has to do with the level of conflict between the parents. And so we're going to talk about conflict in tip number 10, but we know that conflict is toxic for children's development. When you choose an adversarial process, a court process, typically that's going to escalate the conflict between parents. By choosing to stay out of court, mediation, collaborative divorce, settlement-based resolution, what you're doing is you're looking to bridge gaps between 2 parents rather than widening those gaps. This is all good for kids.
Okay, and as you alluded to, Stephanie, our last tip this time is to reduce the conflict, as you said, between the parents. And you kind of talk a little bit about that, but let's expand on why that is such a big issue, especially for helping the kids.
There's a study that was done in Alberta that millions of dollars, private dollars, were spent to do research on the impact of toxic stress on children's brain development. That was one aspect of the study. And what they found is that that toxic stress, which can be things like a high conflict household or conflict between two parents, can actually change the shape of a child's brain development. What we're looking for is to give these children the best opportunity to thrive in a two-home household. And sometimes moving into two households can actually, by its nature, have the parents have less interaction with each other and can reduce that conflict. What we want is for parents to learn how to be what my good friend Karen Bonnell, who is an author and a mediator in Washington, USA, she talks about parents being CEOs, co-parent executive officers. And that's where parents are learning to communicate in a cordial and business-like relationship, because they are in the business of raising two children. And what we want to do is to help parents to get out of the spouse brain and into that parent brain. And that's what can impact children positively.
All right, Stephanie, well, thank you once again for joining us this week. Always great information. And as usual, if people are looking for to either get in touch with you or for the e-learning community, Up a Notch Learning, what's the best place to start?
Sure. Our website has some great information. So our law firm website is henkadivorce.ca. And if you're wanting to get some great free resources with respect to separation and divorce to empower you as you go through your process, check out upanotchlearning.com. And as always, you can call our office for more information, 780-875-2234.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, and we will chat with you again next week.
Thank you for having me.